The fishermen are angry.
Another group of angry fishermen.
Angry.
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 Angry fishermen.
Fishermen are angry.
Not being listened to, it'd make anybody angry after oil.
On February the 7th, 1996, a group of severely frustrated and depressed fishermen decided to protest by occupying the DDFO office in Doctors Cove.
The guy that survived in it for 500 years, fishing with hook and line, they want to throw him out of it and give it to the fishermen that in the end it can kill it. It can kill it.
Their method of fishing is destruction.
Our federal minister says he don't like nothing done with a gun to his head. Well, what do we got? We got everything to our head, guns and all.
If they think they can take me out of the fisheries, they'll be coming down with me. I'll be right in the front lines. I'll take the first bullet.
On the far eastern shore of Canada, a battle is going on. The Canadian Department of Fisheries and Oceans, or DFO, plans to phase out many handline fishermen who fished with only a hook and line for hundreds of years. Other traditional fishermen are fighting against powerful forces around the globe, from New England to West Africa to Indonesia. Here in the fishing village of Barrington Passage, Tony Cunningham and his 5 friends have just seized a DFO building and barricaded themselves inside, and they refuse to leave.
We know if they got wind that we was going to take the building over, that they would lock the door on us when they see us coming. So we got together secretly at my house and different houses, and I mean it was so secret that sometimes I forgot it. So I came in and I passed them a note. So the note had our demands on, and meanwhile I was saying we're here to take the office over, we don't want no trouble, we're here peacefully, no problem. So he kept reading the note, and as he read the note his chin kept dropping. So we had her locked in. And then they just kept a calling on the VHFs and on the phones. We got the building. Could get 5 years, take us. We're not going nowhere.
Take me. Because my children and my grandchildren ain't got no future in this fishery.
I'll take the house that I live in right now. My grandfather lived there. I think he was a handliner for 50 years plus. My father lived there. He was a handliner 50 years plus. I've been a handliner 30 years plus. That's 130 years of history. They tell me now that I got no history. I don't know what's more history you want in 130 years.
Southwest Nova Scotia is next door to Maine, but it might be closer in spirit to Texas. It's a world of pickup trucks and churches, patriotism and traditional values. Not a place you'd expect to find allegations of government corruption and oppression. But as powerful forces threaten to destroy his small town, men like Alfred Brannan are turning into unlikely activists.
I can't explain what it's like to live in a community like this. People just help people. People talk to people. If somebody's house burns or somebody gets into a jam that they need money or whatever, they'll actually go from door to door for donations. They'll have pie sales. They'll have rummage sales.
Hey, we're having some meetings at the church in Stony Island.
Yeah. Minister, he'll come around and invite you to the socials or come to church or whatever, like to a supper or whatever, and they don't do that in the big cities, I'll bet you.
That's the boss man. His uncle named him because of the TV program Dukes of Hazzard on TV, that boss. And my youngest son, Squirrel.
My youngest fellow is only 12 years old, and there's my Father's Day gift he drew me, and that's all he does is draw pictures of boats. So I'm kind of worried that he's liable to end up in this fishery too.
This fight that we got is for the communities in Nova Scotia. Everybody.
It isn't just for us.
Ain't just for ourselves. This is for everybody.
If fishing dies, the community dies.
Alfred Brannan's family has caught haddock, pollock, and cod here for 5 generations. But Canada is introducing a controversial system of individual transferable quotas, or ITQs, which will allow companies to buy handliners' licenses. They're also raising some fees over 6,000% and preventing Alfred from passing on his license to his son Boss. Corporations exist in perpetuity. But when Alfred dies, his license and the environmental knowledge of his ancestors may die with him. Back in Barrington Passage, no one expects this spontaneous protest to last. Independent fishermen are a headstrong bunch, and their small industry groups have little centralized leadership. But after 5 days, something surprising happens.
Approximately 25 protesters have seized another DFO office, this time in Meteghan. Some say for the first time, fishermen are acting collectively to defend their way of life. Fishermen occupying the DFO office in Barrington Passage have barricaded themselves in, allowing no one access to the building. There seems to be a sense of urgency among them, especially in light of the possibility that DFO may try to remove the 5 protesters from the Barrington Passage office.
Take us to jail. The problem's still there. It hasn't been solved. They just took 5 or 6 people out of the building. But the problem's still there. They still got to face it.
I don't want to go to jail. That's the last thing any of us wants to go to jail. But if we have to, we will. We're going to get our point made, whatever way it takes.
We still have a chance to stop the process of being eliminated. Hopefully there'll be a good result.
I hope.
It ain't no hope. It ain't no if, and it ain't but.
This is it. This is it. This is it.
This is what they call Custer's last stand.
From time immemorial, the Grand Banks of the Northwest Atlantic were the richest fishing grounds in the world. The Vikings arrived here about 1000 AD, followed by the Basques and others, whose fish fed Europe for centuries. But in the 1950s, there was a sudden onslaught of new technology, with factory freezer trawlers over 400 feet long. With radar and sonar, they could catch and process over 1 million pounds of fish a day. Although the British had fished out their North Sea as early as 1900, government still believed nature could survive this industrialized assembly line approach. It was a mistake many now regret.
A lot of political leaders thought that by providing grants and opening a fish plant that they would allow more people to work and would protect the social and economic fabric of coastal communities. There was a dramatic overcapitalization, and that this led to overfishing, and this led to an economic and social disaster.
By the 1970s, industrialized fleets posed a grave threat to species such as the Atlantic halibut, haddock, bluefin tuna, herring, and cod. Yet it took the DFO until 1982 to respond with the Kirby Report. This management plan saw vast, unexploited profits and called for bigger boats with even more technology.
The essential message of the Kirby Report was we've got to reshape the fishing industry so that the large corporations, which in 1981 were growing rapidly, could rely upon the fisheries resource as their private preserve to make money.
They had a horn of plenty, and there was no limit. They could do what they want, build all the fish plants they want, build all the vessels they want, put them out there. No one ever thought of the end. Fish were plentiful, and they fished until there was no fish.
In 1982, 5 large fishing companies went bankrupt due to inefficiency and mismanagement. The DFO combined their assets into one super corporation, Fishery Products International, leaving the same managers in charge and subsidizing them with $150 million.
The taxpayers kept them in the fishery year after year after year when they could not show a profit. They couldn't show a profit. That if I can't show a profit, I'm gone.
For years, every time they got in trouble, there was grants and outright subsidies. The money was always there for them. These companies had the government in their pocket. Whatever they wanted, they got.
I wish it were true. I wish big companies did get preferential treatment. Big companies don't.
They were real chummy with the bureaucrats. They knew about federal programs coming out before they came out. By the time the program came out, before you could apply for it, these guys already had their money.
The lobbying that goes on behalf of Clearwater, Nat Sea, Fisheries Product International is incessant lobbying, and one of the largest lobbying firms was owned and controlled by the former premier of the province of Newfoundland. In my view, that presents a clear conflict of interest. It's the buddy game.
We would not say that we've been extraordinarily successful. When you use a term like that, I define somebody like Bill Gates, and we're not in his league, I can assure you.
John Risley has houses all over the place and cars galore and swimming pools indoor and out. So he's a paragon of middle-scale capitalism. Control the marketplace, control the product, control the processing, control the workers who produce the product. Push the independent fishing people out of the frame of your picture. You don't need them anymore.
The effects of industrialized fishing soon became clear. In 1992, the DFO was forced to shut down almost all of the legendary Grand Banks cod fleet. The fish that had fed the Western world for centuries were gone. When the public demanded an explanation, the DFO said the problem was simply overfishing. However, this often used term is misleading because it blames handliners equally with much more destructive types of fishing.
Who depleted the bloody fishery? I'd like to have someone answer that question. Was it the inshore fishermen of Nova Scotia? God help us. Was it the handliners who raped the resource and very nearly killed it? No. It was the large corporate ships, and you don't have to have a PhD in oceanography to know why and how. They are dragging, and when they drag their big plates on the bottom of the seafloor, they destroy habitat.
The most destructive element of dragging is the 500-pound doors that draggers tow across the ocean bottom to hold open a net often big enough for several jumbo jets.
And they scoop everything. They tear up rocks. I've seen boulders as big as cars come back in the net that they've tore up at the bottom. They've done that everywhere in the Bay of Fundy. It's not only destroying the fish, but it's completely destroying the bottom. It's very environmentally unfriendly.
A fish drag will do damage to the bottom. It will cut off. The bottom is irregular. It will tend to flatten the bottom off. Absolutely. That's the case. On the other side, you could argue, well, so what? What is the economic value of a mound of rock? And whether the mound of rock is 2 feet up or whether it's flat, could somebody please explain to me what is the difference? And if we're getting economic value out of taking that rock and leveling it, as we would take a field and turn it into an arable condition by getting rid of the weeds and the old stumps and so on, and tilling it and getting it productive, I mean, isn't that having some positive effect?
If you destroy the bottom, you destroy the bottom of the food chain in the ocean. And I do not have very much education, But I fished since I've been a little boy, and I do understand that part of it.
Unlike clear-cutting or strip mining, this environmental damage is deep underwater and hard to assess. The DFO says scientists still haven't proven dragging has a significant impact.
We've had many studies, qualitative studies, and assessments of the impacts of dragging on the ocean bottom. Doesn't seem to have a major impact on the groundfish resource.
What does he mean, no impact?
How many pounds them dragadors weigh a piece? 500-600 pounds?
Inside the browns of the deep water, there used to be mountains there. And they just flattened them out like pancakes. They beat them right to pieces. The big draggers just cleaned it. Destroying the environment, and the government's allowing it to happen.
Fisheries biologists have long tried to protect sensitive areas by making them no-take zones, off-limits to even small draggers. This would also protect important areas where fish spawn. Most countries, however, allow draggers and gill netters to kill pregnant females bearing millions of eggs.
If you're going to try to conserve a fishery, start by closing some of the spawning areas. You start breaking the food chain, once you break it, it's gone.
Whether it's sexually mature or reproducing, the objective is to get the greatest value out of it, with the cautions of not taking it all off of one stock where you can in actual fact deplete the entire stock.
Citizens trust the DFO to balance profits with environmental protection. But in 1997, scientists accused the department of a bias toward profit-making. They said top officials had ordered them to tailor their research toward industry profit objectives and had put them under gag orders to suppress dissenting views.
Science follows politics, and the federal administrators know it. When you get them off camera and you talk to them about their work, they will shake their heads and say, well, I'm just here to enforce the regulations. A genuine commitment to conservation of a sustainable resource should be encouraging hand lining.
Many governments believe hand lining is outmoded technology, like the telegraph or the horse and buggy. But Alfred Brannan says it's a solution to the problems of net fishing. Spawning fish rarely bite hooks, and hooks don't destroy habitat. And nets can become lost, drifting in the ocean and killing fish for years, where a hook will just sink to the bottom and disintegrate. Handlines can target the specific species they are licensed to catch, while draggers can't. This causes one of the worst problems in the fishing industry, the dumping of bycatch.
When you throw a drag overboard and you haul it around, whatever comes up in that drag is already dead. One of the species you may not even have a quota for. You cannot legally bring it ashore. So you dump it overboard. It's dead fish.
Every year, draggers around the world dump up to 30 million tons of dead fish. Yet most governments have done little to support other fishing methods. Handliner John Horner says a DFO official told him that, like the fish themselves, his days are numbered.
Right now, as we speak, there's draggers firing more fish overboard than I'll ever catch on a hand line. You know what he said to me? He said, you with a hand line license, it's just one more dead fish.
Back in Barrington Passage, Tony, Scott, and the others have had little sleep for 10 days, only leaving their tiny entryway for a trip to the bathroom or a badly needed shower. But momentum is growing. When Fisherman sees another building, the DFO goes to a state of alert, hiring armed guards to protect their Halifax headquarters. But none of these security measures can stop the next group to enter the fight.
So I had my hand on the door, and I hollered no. And at that time, the commissioner just stepped back, and I opened it, and Kathy came in, and I come in behind her, and then the other 3 girls come in, and we hollered, "We're here to stay." They figured they were going to be taken over.
But I don't think they figured it was by women.
Yeah, they thought it was going to be the men. I think they were really surprised to see the women come in and do it.
This is the first time I've ever even thought of doing anything like this. I was always that person that was in the background. Everybody else voiced their opinion and I never said a word. But this time I had to do it.
Many people, when they enter the door, they say, "They told me it was you and I didn't believe them. I can't believe it's you." So, but if you believe in something this serious and it affects your whole family, friends, neighbors, everybody, then someone had to make this move.
I'm scared of no man, but I am scared of some women. So, I guarantee you I don't want to be no policeman to go out and take them 5 women out. Because you know what a woman's like. They can, but anyway.
What is a woman like?
Well, they're a lot. We'll put it this way. They're a lot tougher than we are. They can hold their own.
Some say the trouble here really started back in 1983. After the Kirby report called for phasing out small fishermen, the DFO called out riot squads on peaceful protesters and brought in a Navy patrol vessel to destroy illegal lobster pots. Fishermen felt the DFO was declaring war on them. They chased 2 government boats back into port and set them on fire.
They just hated the sight of those green uniforms. They didn't want us there. They didn't want us interfering with their lifestyle. Turned around and I look, I could see all the bows of the boats coming. I think my knees were banging together pretty good.
The whole fleet of boats going up Pubnico Harbour, chasing these 2 boats. The provincial fisheries minister at the time, he described it as a cowboys and Indians scenario.
There was at least 50 or more fishermen on the wharf in a very hostile mood. Fisticuffs broke out with some fishery officers trying to defend the boat.
They bumped the boat, they hooked onto it and towed it out, and there was a guy who jumped aboard there and set one of the boats on fire.
The DFO reacted strongly, charging fishermen with the crime of piracy. In court, they called Professor Don Grady as an expert witness, a strategy which backfired. He soon became an advocate for the fishermen, a position he holds today.
Piracy is an 18th century crime. It's not a 20th century crime. We're not dealing with Long John Silver and some group of cutthroat pirates attacking Her Majesty's shipping.
That was totally ridiculous. That charge was totally ridiculous. All the women were going to go plead guilty to that. They were going to go. I think at one point the women were all going to go confess to piracy.
It was a terrible thing that happened, and it shouldn't have happened. And the tendency was to believe that the people that did that should have been dealt with very severely.
We really believed in government. We believed in the court system. And that was the biggest hurt that came out of the whole thing, was to realize that when we needed our politicians to look after us, they just didn't seem to want to do anything.
If you read the press transmitted throughout Canada, the government went to such extraordinary lengths to break the spirit of these communities. There's one enduring reality in human life, and that is that the human spirit can't be broken by force.
12 fishermen were forced to plead guilty to lesser charges of property destruction and received suspended sentences. Now they were criminals. After 15 days, the occupations have spread as far as New Brunswick. When fishermen take over their 7th building, they force the DFO to take defensive action.
From Sydney around the South Shore to the Bay of Fundy in southern New Brunswick, we felt necessary to close the offices. My staff is concerned by public statements by the Alliance that in fact they don't have control over the people that are in there.
We're prepared to talk as early as tomorrow afternoon about the issues they raise on licensing policy, but they must leave the buildings first.
He says, leave the offices. We'll talk. They never talked to us before. They never listened to us before.
We're staying here until they come down here and lug us out of here. And then we'll be back. And if it takes more, there's going to be more than that going on. So we've had it. Everybody's had it.
We took 7 buildings over, okay? By taking 7 buildings over, we got 18 now because they're not operating.
They shut them down.
Because if they open one up and we decide we want it, we can take it.
They'll get it.
We proved that.
Not only in Nova Scotia,
New Brunswick
is shut down too.
Another black spot on the
Another
chart.
black spot on the chart.
The DFO, as usual with overbearing authorities, have underestimated their opponents. So I'm sure that there are now serious discussions going on in Ottawa as to how they can get out of this thing without losing face.
If they say to you guys, get out by Monday night, what are you guys going to say to them? No. See you later. No, I mean, you got it. We'll do word of Sunday.
DFO may be wondering how the protesters have lasted 2 weeks in the tiny entranceway. Those who fish for a living seem to share one quality. They're tough. In 1816, Sir Walter Scott wrote, "It's not fish you're buying, it's men's lives." Today, lobstermen still get caught in the ropes and dragged underwater to their deaths, and handliners capsize in winter storms. Fishermen have the highest fatality rate of any job in North America.
Lobstering gets in your blood. Either you got it in your blood or you haven't got it, right? If it's in your
No,
blood,
not really. Most of us just doing it because we got to do it. What else we going to do? I'm not doing this because I like it.
You don't like it?
No, not really. I'd love to be laying on my ass somewhere.
Well, sell out then.
Can't afford it. I got to do something.
Oh, I see.
What else am I going to do?
What, chop wood?
My back's gone now. I'm sure I don't want to touch wood.
Well, then you ain't going to fish many lobsters. Your back's gone, are you?
That's what I got these folks for. And they're all them folks, their backs is gone. So.
I've heard a lot of these guys bark before around here. I'm retiring. Fishing, I'm sick of it. Hey, they retire. 2 weeks later, they're getting another boat. Or they're working harder than what they did when they was fishing. Because it isn't great laying around.
Here we are shut down. I can't even go down on the wharf. See boats come in and watch them take it fishing. Because I should be there too. Fishing's in your blood and you can't get it out.
The perception of the Canadian people is that the fisherman is a lazy bugger who only works 2 months of the year and draws pogie the rest of the time and drinks too much beer, which is not the case at all.
You know, we started when we were 13 years old working hard. A fisherman was classed back then as a second-class citizen.
Scruffy-ass fisherman.
I used to call myself stupid, but I'll tell you, I'm a long ways from stupid. I put myself down enough in one lifetime.
The fishermen are probably the most knowledgeable on many, many aspects of what's going on out there. They're out there every day. They're hauling traps. They're seeing what's coming up every day in the catch. They see what's happening in the environment. That information has to be fed in to the scientific information.
And this is the problem. You have this mentality, this closed-mind mentality in Ottawa. We don't really know what the hell's going on here, or what effect their policies have on communities. They don't understand that. There was need of a new wharf in Sonyville, which is about 30 miles from here. When they proposed where they were going to build it, every fisherman around there said, that's the worst place you could put a wharf. But you can't argue with an engineer in Ottawa. He knows it all, right? Put the wharf there. That first winter, it was smashed to hell. You know, a concrete wharf, yeah, but he built it on a sandbar. So, you know, I mean, so they don't listen.
Government meetings with the fishing industry are usually dominated by wealthier and more powerful draggers and gill netters. Handliners say that without lobbyists and PR firms in Ottawa, the only way they can affect regulations is through protest.
There's certainly been incidents where we've had vessels rammed, where we've had shots fired, where we've had numerous confrontations all across Canada.
Yeah, I remember checking a boat one day, and there was a shotgun over in the corner, and I said, what do you have that shotgun on board for? He says, it's for seals and pricks. And I didn't ask any more questions.
The DFO officer can't be intimidated, no. You're boarding ships, you're dealing with hostile fishermen, it's dangerous. When I say I'm being shot at, these weren't shots of intimidation. These were shots that tried to hit you, because these were shots that went by your ear or landed in the water ahead of your boat or things like that.
But the whole problem is he wasn't shot at from nobody down around this way, because if he had been, he'd have had a little round hole right here. Between the eyes. Right between the eyes.
Yeah, they're tough guys. They're tough guys. They're the kind of guys that, if there's an argument, they'll deck you, pick you up, dust you off, set you on your bar stool, and buy you a beer. But they're not going to pull any punches. I mean, whatever they believe in. You know.
In 1998, fishermen here began a historic federal lawsuit based on the Canadian Constitution, which defines natural resources as the common property of all citizens. Yet they still find their old image used against them.
Who do you think is poaching the lobsters? Who do you think is fishing in excess of the trap limits? That goddamn independent fisherman. And so what you've got to do is say to people, look, these are the rules, and if you break those rules, you're out. Break the rules, you're out. Sanctioned. Out. Gone. Find a new job. You lost your license.
After 21 days, the DFO decides it's time to end the occupation. They get a court injunction threatening any trespassers with 5 years in prison. The plan backfires when hundreds of supporters gather in the parking lot and refuse to leave. If police troops try to evict them, Scott Nickerson fears there will be bloodshed.
They kind of thought that, well, Jesus is going to put a scare into them, they're going to run.
Court injunction just made the people get more united together by walking in here, chucking them on the ground. 5 years is nothing. I'm thinking from the future. We can bring on that phone right now and put probably 6,000 would go to jail with us. We work 20 days, peaceful, and there'll be DFO has got a problem.
As Calvin Kaiser returns to a protest he believes will end in a confrontation with police, his wife and 10-year-old daughter wait at home. For them, the past week has been unsettling.
It scared me a lot because she cries a lot. She's upset. She don't know what's going to be brought on to him.
And the fisheries protest spilled into a high school near Yarmouth, Nova Scotia today. Look at this. These students, many of whom are children of fishermen, say new DFO regulations will put their parents out of work.
If handliners lose their jobs, more than their families will suffer. In an economic ripple effect, local businesses who depend on them may fail, raising welfare and unemployment costs. The government will also have to keep spending millions to subsidize draggers, who are rarely efficient enough to survive on their own. They struggle with huge fuel and maintenance costs, and their nets crush and damage many fish, reducing their market value. Draggers also lose vast potential profits when they discard bycatch, destroy underwater habitat, and kill spawning fish. In 1989, a typical year, the world spent $92 billion to catch $70 billion worth of fish.
Fishery today is just for big business. If you go to the bank today at $200,000 and ask the bank manager, he laughs at you. So I'm what you call a washed-up fisherman. I can't go out on the shore and catch a crab. And there's going to be a lot of heartbroken fishermen because we ain't going to be allowed to go because they want the big companies to do it.
If I'd have drawn unemployment this summer, I would have made a lot more money than I've made fishing. They've cut us back so far that it's not worth going.
Handliners are allowed only 2 or 3% of the total catch and stay home much of the year while the draggers fish. If the government cuts him back any more, Alfred Brannan may be forced to sell out. He says the DFO should give him some of the fish quota they give the draggers, but that doesn't seem likely. Alfred has some powerful enemies.
People believe because you're big, you're wealthy, and, Christ, he's got lots of money. Take it from him, don't take it from me. Take the fish away from him. Give me his fish. And the guy who owns his own boat, he's a more romantic figure. We're in love with him as a country, so we're going to treat him differently. That's horse manure.
Well, why not try it out? When you hand line, you do the minimum amount of damage to the catch when you get it aboard. You're close enough to shore to ice it properly and to sell it in top-grade condition. The Scandinavian fisheries got into inshore fishing of an efficient, high-quality sort and focused their attention on adding value to the fish that they caught, so that instead of high tonnages, low quality, low price, and the devastation of a fishery, they could go to low tonnages, high quality, and high price.
If I could rule this fishery, the fishery would be back in record numbers within 5 years, because the first thing I'd do would be ban all nets. All nets. Hook and line is the only way to go. And if these fellows just dragging or gill netting wants to go hook and line too, let them come.
Bring a hook and line only, and there'll be fish for the world.
People in fishing communities have learned that you can't catch the last fish and hope to make a living for your family. A corporation is a balance sheet. Catching the last fish is simply yet another challenge. Sell off the fleet, close down the plants, and go into chicken burgers.
In Barrington Passage, more than 3 weeks have gone by with little sleep in a small room surrounded by the constant threat of violence. There are rumors of a nearby police unit ready to storm the building, but the men say the only way they'll leave is in handcuffs. The pressure is getting to Scott Nickerson.
It's a sad thing when you get up in the morning and your little girl looks, I said, Daddy, how come you don't go fishing anymore? It's affecting emotionally, financially, there's no stopping.
Meanwhile, Fisheries Minister Fred Mifflin is betting Scott and the others can't last much longer. He finally breaks his silence.
Well, I don't intend to negotiate while people are, doing the occupation thing.
What Mifflin is being told is, in a hostage situation, keep talking. Doesn't matter what you're saying to these fishermen as long as you're talking to them, because sooner or later you're going to wear them out.
The Minister of Fisheries and DFO is trying to shoot this down and make it look as small as possible. Yet again, they're not realizing what they're doing to the people and the communities when they're doing this. They don't care.
There's people out there now telling their story are crying. We've had so far a couple people that's had nervous breakdowns that realise what's going on. There was a priest standing there. I said, you know, you could get 5 years. And he said, as long as you chuck me in jail next to you guys, I believe what you're doing, I'll go. That was a priest.
There's a lot of prayer going into this fisheries, you know. A lot of prayers. My mother's prayed, and everybody's prayed. I've prayed. When our fisheries is gone, we're doomed.
As Alfred heads home on one of the rare days he's still allowed to fish, a lot of men just like him are in trouble too. From Gloucester to Ghana, Pakistan to New Zealand, debt-ridden governments are trying to survive in the global economy by selling off their fish to foreign draggers. They justify this environmentally, saying they're reducing the number of boats in the water. Yet far more fish are killed than ever before, as unemployed fishermen provide an endless supply of cheap native labor. Families who can't find work are forced to leave their homes, a problem with which Canada has been struggling.
One of the things that's offered through the Atlantic Groundfish Strategy is opportunities for people who want to leave the fishery to be retrained for other things.
They're going to re-educate me to go out and compete with someone that's got 7-8 years of college and he can't get a job. And they're going to re-educate me to go up there and get a job alongside of him. You know, be serious.
I didn't want to do anything else. That's all I wanted to do. So.
This is the way of life right now. Like they're taking it away from you. How would you feel? Not very good.
What are they going to re-educate us for? My great-grandfather was a fisherman. My grandfather was a fisherman. All my uncles, my father was a fisherman. Well, I'm 37 years old. That's all I've ever known is fishing since I was 15 years. And I knew about it before then because I used to bait trawl for my dad when I was probably 12. So what am I going to do? I don't understand it. I'm not going to be a brain surgeon or a doctor or a lawyer. What else am I going to do?
I mean, you know, just because an industry was good to you for a long period of time does not mean it's going to continue to be good to you, and you've got to adapt to these sorts of changes. Public money should be invested in buying back licenses and getting rid of fishermen. Now, the problem with that is the response you get from the community at large. Big companies are going to take over, or the wealthy fishermen are going to buy out the poor fishermen. That's nonsense. Yes, there will be rationalization. There will be fewer independent fishermen, but there is no agenda at work. There's no objective here to displace independent ownership interests with corporate ownership interests. No, absolutely. That will never happen in my lifetime, in my grandchildren's lifetime.
There is no purpose to be gained or no intention on behalf of government, either political or bureaucratic, to see all of the industry go to big business. It will happen by forces of its own accord.
Well, time to shut down, boys and girls. Go elsewhere. Find a job in Toronto or Montreal or Regina, Calgary.
16 years old, Mum moved to the city and we all moved with her, right? And I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take the hustle and bustle, the cars going by all times of the night. You walk up to say hi to somebody, they turn their back and walk away because they were so scared. I damn well wouldn't take my kids to the city. I don't think they'd have any future there at all.
As consumers learn that handline fish is higher quality and come to recognize false environmental claims, they may boycott the draggers' products found in frozen foods and fast food restaurants. This may be the handliners' only hope, now that their government says it will no longer protect them.
So government is taking less of a role probably in the future to try to ensure the survival of the local communities based on the fact that we're just unable to administer it. We will do what we can, we always have and always will, but we can't let it be the driving force anymore.
You know, we thought sending a little letter to a politician's wife. You know.
Yeah, maybe she's got a heart.
Maybe she's
where
got
he doesn't have a heart.
You know, it's hard, you know.
It is.
We're the heart of the fishermen, you know, it comes from the heart. You know, if we shed a tear.
You don't think Mifflin and them's going to worry about tears, do you?
It's time they did.
The social costs in these communities, wife battering, abandoned kids, the breakup of families. How do you put a cost on that? You know, that's pretty rough, and it's happening now already.
What is his future? You know, eventually, with policies coming out now, I haven't even got a future. What is his future?
He's got none.
You know, he hasn't gotten none.
What do you do with these people that need to be displaced from the industry? From Taiwan, southern China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. It's a whole new world, an extremely aggressive world. That's what globalization has done. Make some hard decisions and get on with it. It's just too bad we can't do that, because we need to do that.
There are a fair number, somewhere between 800 and 900 handliners that have no other licenses and don't make $25,000 in income. They will be phased out over time.
What must it feel like to be phased out? Do things just get very blurry before your eyes and your pulse and respiration disappear? When the inshore fisheries are phased out, then the small family farms and woodlots will be put under the knife of technological control. Phased out.
"25 days in this small room were taking their toll on Tony and his friends. They say it's obvious the government would rather imprison them than negotiate, and soon they'll have no other recourse but violence."
We've tried talking, we've tried associations, we've tried peaceful demonstration. So our next step is what? We've tried 3 ways, there's only the 4th way. And you know what the 4th way is. Anybody out there in the world knows what the 4th way has got to be.
Plan B, stand for blood.
And if the RCMP seek to bring the tactical squad in to one of these settings, then there will be violence. This battle is for their lives.
I got a rack full of guns out, and they'll be coming with me, and they'll be loaded. Someone said, "Boys, we're going to Ottawa, fight the government. Them crooks in Parliament." I'll be right in the front lines. And I'll take the first bullet.
After 26 days of confrontation, people across Canada turn on their televisions to find the DFO has backed down.
ASN News has learned that the Federal Department of Fisheries has asked protesters to meet with them in Ottawa to resolve the ongoing fisheries dispute.
Whether or not the fishermen give up their protest and leave these offices is a moot point at this stage of the game. Ottawa has agreed on talks aimed at renewing the Atlantic fishery, and they get underway next week.
6 guys being confined in an area like this for a long period of time. It's a lot of pressure, you know. I'm not scared to say I laid down nights and cried to get rid of it. We're still willing to fight. We're not done. fighting a bunch of people that they might crawl back into the closet for a while, but they'll surface again. I know they will, and I'm going to make my children and my grandchildren aware of them, that they may have to fight.
For 25 long days, the Minister of Fisheries continuously stated that he wouldn't talk while government offices were occupied. And we continuously stated that we would not leave until we talked. This same approach existed until yesterday when the Minister of Fisheries reversed his decision. Yes, we're tired. Yes, we're frustrated. Yes, we're depressed. And yes, we want to go home to see our children and families. Our children are not our future. We are their future, and that's why we're fighting so hard.
He done it all. I couldn't sleep a wink. 25 days, 26 days with him snoring. We can face anything afterwards.
The whole public is watching. And for them to go do what we've been preaching now for 3 weeks, to stab us in the back again, I don't think it'd be a very good policy. It would be one of the poorest policies that they did put in place.
Scott's fears were soon confirmed when the DFO refused to change its plans to phase out many handliners. Several of the men reoccupied the building with little success. The handliners had a strong case in federal court. The DFO challenged them and lost, but quickly appealed. Handliners then discovered they'd need $100,000 for legal fees before their case could even come to trial. They didn't have the money and had to abandon their lawsuit. In June 2001, John Risley's corporation purchased Fishery Products International, making him one of the most powerful men in the global fishing industry. Meanwhile, the DFO's plan to phase out handliners continues. Since 1996, 500 men have been forced to give up their licenses. Don Grady contracted a degenerative nerve disease and is confined to a wheelchair and slowly going blind. Yet he still makes it to the courthouse, where he's defending the first of 18 handliners in court cases against the DFO. And the handliners certainly haven't given up their activism. When the tall ships came to Halifax in the fall of 2000, Fred Sears climbed the famous Blue Nose schooner's 200-foot mast. He refused to descend until Nova Scotia's Premier and House of Commons agreed to meet with handliners. After 56 hours, the government gave in, and Fred descended.
The inshore fishermen of Nova Scotia and the Atlantic provinces are going to continue to struggle, and in my judgment at least, continue to survive.
Sunny dreams can't be real, they're just stories.
son. The singing fisherman.
All right.